Hi, this is Brian Bieron with Platform Economy Insights, and this is a quick briefing to update you or inform you as to what the 5 I's is. Now, by 5 I's, I don't mean the letter I mean the word I, like E-Y-E. The 5 I's is a term for 5 countries, the United States, the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, that cooperate on intelligence, national security related information gathering, often called signals intelligence. We're talking very James Bond-like. This is a Cold War era organization of cooperation between these 5 countries who work together more closely than they do with any of their other allies when it comes to these kind of intelligence and signals gathering work. Now, we're actually hearing about this in the news regarding digital issues for 2 things recently that I thought would be worth mentioning what the 5 I's is. In case you hear about it, you'll be a little bit informed, which always helps. Now, first of all, there was a recent announcement that the countries of the 5 I's group are going to work together more closely when it comes to competition policy investigations. In other words, the competition authorities of the United States, the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand signed a letter of agreement, a memorandum of understanding regarding cooperation when it comes to their investigations. Now, the country competition authority leaders all mentioned digital companies, the big digital platforms, in particular Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon, as one reason why they think this new cooperation will be helpful. They talked about how the new global digital economy requires more cooperation when investigating potential wrongdoing by these giant digital companies. Now, it's also worth noting that Australia and the UK, the competition authorities in those 2 countries, the ACCC in Australia and the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK, have been particularly aggressive in terms of their investigations of the big digital companies. The United States competition authorities, the Department of Justice, and also the Federal Trade Commission, have also more recently really picked up their level of interest, their urgency in terms of investigating the big digital companies. So the fact that the 5 I's countries are going to be working more closely together probably indicates that they feel more comfortable in terms of sharing what they learn about the operations of these businesses, potentially when they gather, subpoena information from them, things like that. They're going to be cooperating more. The other reason why this kind of national security intelligence information is really relevant right now in the digital economy sense is because we've been hearing so much more about the ability to transfer data between Europe and the United States, in particular in the context of the European courts overturning some of the legal mechanisms that companies use to transfer data. Back in 2015, something called the Safe Harbor was overturned. And more recently, the European High Court overturned something called the US-EU Privacy Shield. Again, this is one of the 3 major legal mechanisms that many companies use to transfer data on Europeans from their European operations into the United States. The court overturned those authorities not because of what the companies were doing, and the company involved in these 2 major cases was Facebook in both instances, not because of the company practices so much as because the court in Europe determined that U.S. surveillance laws like FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and related programs that were, for example, made public by leaks from Edward Snowden back in 2013, that those don't grant Europeans the appropriate rights of appeal in terms of the ability of the United States government to access data on their activities on digital platforms. This is a national security issue. This is a law enforcement issue. The the U.S. government intelligence agencies and the U.S. government more broadly would defend those programs created during the Cold War, created during the time when the Five Eyes came together, and then updated and still used extensively, it appears, during the War on Terror following 9/11, would defend them for very important national security issues. So, the ability to transfer data between countries is starting to become wrapped in directly with those kind of national security, law enforcement issues. And we're going to hear more about that. In fact, not only has the European Court overturned the US-EU Privacy Shield Agreement, but has raised questions about the other mechanisms that businesses use to provide their legal underpinning to transfer data from Europe to the United States, those being what are called standard contract clauses or binding corporate rules. Since the problems that the court identified are with U.S. government national security laws and practices, any of these authorities being able to override the U.S. government's authority is highly questionable, and we'll see how that plays out. In addition, it's not as though European governments don't care about those kind of national security concerns, and in fact, terrorism has been a major issue in Europe as well. And so whether the European government broadly, the European Commission and the EU, and the national governments themselves really want to weaken their ability to collect intelligence in the name of consumer privacy is something we're all going to see how that works out. There's a reason why the European government negotiated, for example, the Privacy Shield following the overturning of the Safe Harbor. It appears to be obvious that Europe does care about these kind of security operations going on, as well as the consumer privacy and the importance of the business that goes on that involves data sharing. So, with that, remember the Five Eyes: US, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. Remember that it's about national security intelligence gathering, and that when it impacts the digital economy from a public policy perspective, you do have this tension between national security as well as business operations. Thanks. This is Brian Bieron with Platform Economy Insights. Until our next briefing. Bye-bye.